Divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that allude to slavery. The prophet was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, and they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens according to their free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations. Those who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, goes to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into the light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that make a man and a nation. The wealth of all governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone, and without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people and I desire their unity and mine back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If the Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, Arabians are first to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standard of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro alludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored alludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because by honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by the national government in which they live. The 14th, the 14th and 15th Amendment brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. In that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by my citizens and my people of this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with my works, with the works that are being performed in North America by my people. And this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of the government being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of our forefathers and learn to stop serving cardinal customs and merely ideas of men that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin, which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way. And without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They would not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and examined conditions there. And it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things that bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives a life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work, to help me bring my people out of darkness into the marvelous light from the prophet, Islam. Peace and love to Larry Bay.
Well, peace and love, everyone. Peace and love.
Uh, so
Uh,
what I want to emphasize, I don't know who saw when I was reading the Divine Warning today. I have some things highlighted. Let me get the good brother Salim in here real quick. Greet him before I get started. Islam, brother Salim, peace and love, man.
Islam Noble.
So what I have highlighted here in the Divine Warning is where it states the free national constitutional law that was enforced in 1774 declared all men free and equal. And if men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment. Most of us know about the 14th and 15th Amendment. We've covered that in a lot of different spaces. Most of us are clear on that. Whoever is not, we can discuss it. Just make it known that that is not clear. In summary, the 14th Amendment was dealing with the Naturalization Act, naturalizing people to become U.S. citizens. We've covered that scope on it wasn't ratified. Why do things need to be ratified? Because that's in the Constitution. Article 1 of the Constitution spells out any enactments, amendments, additions, changes. It needs to be ratified. It wasn't. 14th Amendment wasn't ratified, so therefore you technically can't be a U.S. citizen on that tip. The 14th Amendment just wasn't ratified, so it's not law. It's hocus pocus. Unless you voluntarily, you know what I'm saying? That's one. But that wasn't really the scope of what I'm going into right now. I'm dealing with this 1774 issue. This is before the Constitution. When you think of 1774, when was the Constitution established? 1789 ratified 1790s. When did the United States become the United States? The Articles of Confederation. They started doing business. The 13 colonies decided to start doing business at the United States. But this was after 1774. When was the Declaration of Independence? 1777. This is before 1777. So what document is the prophet talking about? What happened in 1774? All right, so I wanted to just set the stage like that before I continue. Before I continue here. So, who goes there to bring forth misinformation? Only the unsteady, the anxious, and the emotional, And that is dangerous, especially in these days and times. Who does not put their trust in the actions and deeds of their foremother and forefathers? The United States was actually established as a company when they received their independence from the British at the Treaty of Paris in 1783. We'll get into that. That's later. Declaration of Independence, 1777. So they really didn't get their independence to 1783. And we went somewhat over this demonstration a couple months ago with Brother Abdullah, but we're covering it from a slightly different lens. So they were recognized after a 7-year war took place because they asked for independence as a company from the British, who clearly did not want them to be an independent company. Can't blame them colonists. They were treated very bad by the British or the brutish Moors. So the brutish Moors were treating the colonists bad. That's why they love to come over here and have a new life. Because the British titles of nobility, King George and the crew, King Louis, all these brutish Moors that you were taught was blonde hair, blue eye, we're treating these blonde hair, blue eye Slavs bad. So that's another element that we need to make sure we're clear on when we're talking with the people, so they know brutish Moors was dark skinned European sovereignty. The brutish Moors were the sovereignty of England, Scotland, Ireland. We had Slav that we sent over here to carry out jail sentences. We didn't have proper perspective of what we're dealing with. The Moors in America are the cousins of the brutish Moors. We just weren't Christian. We were Muslim. We had sultans and emperors. We weren't Roman, but we still were dealing with our Roman brothers on political business and trade and stuff like that. So this context. All
Islam.
right.
I have a question on that. I don't mean to interrupt you though, but
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
go
want me to
ahead.
wait, I'll wait. So you saying that the European hierarchy over there after 1492 was still Moors?
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the noble
Well,
families who was running stuff in Europe?
yeah, after 1492.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Now
I
we're
th-
talking about 300 years later, we still got brutish, Moors that are titles of nobility. Reconstruction just make them, pale. So we're taught that there's this, the Slavs, which was the Slavs. That's who they were. They women wore our harem.
wow.
These were Slavs, but they make the Slavs look like the Moors that was in rulership. So now we get confused as we grew up in this society. You know what I mean? So,
Mm,
but yeah, that's what was going on. Christian
okay.
Moors. Um, let's see here. So keep in mind, bro, that 1774 I talked about in Divine Warning. I had to set the stage before I went straight into that. So be clear, the Constitution of 1774 that the prophet spoke of is the Articles of Association in 1774, where at that time they were called the United. So that at this time they weren't even called the United States. They were called what? The United Colonies of New England, where they named themselves that by way of the Articles of Confederation in 1643. This is why history and law go together. 1610, Jamestown, James Smith, the Pocahontas story. All this is going on at the same time. The Englishmen is coming over here. Our empresses in these lands, they get misled, and right, the English people having sex with our women, which later gave them jurisdiction to kind of be here because of these mulatto mixed people. But they got the influence of their fathers, so they're being used as puppets. But that's another story. But all this is going on in 1610. So 1643, what's happening? Let's look at the document. What's going on in 1643? And you can get a certified copy of this from the Library of Congress because all this is dealing with what? Federal and state constitutions, colonial charters, and other organic laws of the states, territories, and colonies dealing with the United States. So you can get this from two sources: Library of Congress, Washington Government Printing Office. Two places where you can get this. What's this document talking about? The Articles of Confederation of the what? United Colonies of New England. So when you fast forward today, you're talking about U.S. citizen. These were pilgrims that were Slavs that were under the jury. These are subjects. They paying tribute to the brutish Moor, King George. They get sent over here. They see The Moors over here, they look similar to King George and all that. They got the same complexion as King George, but they just got turbans, fezzes, and feathers. But the same people. These are just the Muslims over here. Moors. These are just the Christians over there, right? So I'm just saying stuff like that with emphasis so we can understand what's going on. So we can explain this to the people. History and law go together. So New England. Nothing was called the United States at this time. This is the same crew that will ultimately do business as the United States of America, but understand who the crew is. The United Colonies of New England. All right. Now, in this document, what I found interesting, they had made a statement how here we go, right here. And for much as the natives, they talking about the Moors, and I have to do this before I continue because it's a new audience. When they saying the natives, back to just simple stuff like this. Repetition. We talking about Lenape Indian, Anaco Indian, any type of Indian. Just know, formerly known as Moors. Moor would be the ancient term. This is not India. All right. I got to do the repetition. Got to do it. I'm recording and everything. So a new audience may hear this. I have to lay the foundation. All right. So let's go back to the document. When they saying natives, they saying Moors. When they saying Indians, they saying Moors. Okay. Let's go back to the document now. So now, and for much as the natives have formerly committed sundry insolence and up sundry free Moors Act. Sundry, it just means various. I'm kind of clowning a little bit, but sundry just mean various. But we do have the Sundry Free Moors Act. It's still related. Sundry insolence and outrages upon several plantations of the English and have of late committed themselves against us. So they reporting back to King George, man, these natives out here, they don't like the fact we out here. they clicking up and doing us wrong out here, man. Fix this. That just was amusing to me, but that wasn't the scope of what I'm talking about today. I wanted to bring that up because it tickled me. All right, so now let's go back. Okay, so now we're not on 1774 yet. We're still setting the stage so you can understand the United States of America. That's the DBA. These are the United English New England colonies. All right, so now let's go to 1774. That's the document that Noble Drew Ali talked about as far as how things have been in contracts have been established by these colonists and us since 1774. Before the treaty, before the Constitution, it was still contracts. Articles of Association. Look how these pilgrims are talking. We, His Majesty's loyal subjects. The pilgrims over here, this is how they're talking. These are subjects. They know they subjects. Who? Subjects to who? King George. They're British subjects, English subjects. They're paying taxes to who they sovereign power is. Even though in America, they're under the jurisdiction of the brutish Moors. We, His Imperial Majesty's most loyal subjects, the delegates of the several colonies of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the three lower counties of Newcastle, Kent, Sussex on Delaware. I just read you Delaware codes, right? How they how they saying the, the more ancient name for the Indians is Moors. That's because in the 13 colonies, these pilgrims were seeing Moors.
Hey,
Um,
Marv, and to
all right.
add what you were saying,
Uh-huh.
to add what you talked about, the all those states that you just named is really called New England to this day. Connecticut, Massachusetts, all them states up there, Rhode Island, all that. That's considered New England till this day.
Precisely. That's what I'm talking about. See that stuff clicking? Because we geniuses up in here, man. We geniuses. hmm But see, now you got more stuff for your tool belt. when you're talking with people, because that's our people are stiff necked and don't want to be down with their own culture because of lack of knowledge. So they didn't get this type of history in school as far as how the scope we're talking about it in. Because it's things that happened before we got to sultans and dealing with treaty negotiations. We need to know the background thoroughly. What led up to this? Why we are not U.S. citizens as Moors. If we just simply know the history, it's very clear. Like we're not part of that. We're not the pilgrim. We're not the pilgrim crew. We're not. That's enough that we're not them. Man. You know what I mean? It's very simple. So I wanted to highlight that. I still want everybody in here to look through this whole entire document. All these documents I'm presenting, read them in their entirety. I'm just showing elements so I can do my demonstration. Okay. So now let's move forward to the actual document that gave these pilgrims their independence to enter into the treaty with the Moors of America, to enter into the treaty with the Muslims under the Sultanate and Caliphates. This is the document that allowed them to treat because now they're not connected to our cousins no more. They got their own. They were allowed to do their own conglomerate called the United States of America. Because we were sitting back because they wanted to do this way earlier. They wanted to come to us and do the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 10 years earlier. But international law said we can't. You a subject. You can't enter a treaty with a sovereign power. Y'all subjects. Talk to our cousins and get y'all stuff together then. If they release y'all, then come talk to us. Right? They finally got released in 1783. Not the Declaration of Independence. That's not when they got. That's a commercial situation. That's for the dummies. They throw that out there. Oh, July 4th. We got nope. 1783. Let's look at the document. British American diplomacy. The definitive treaty of peace is 1783. So, this was instructions from the sovereign powers of Britain. So in Article 1, he states his Britannic or, Brutish Majesty. So this is a Brutish Moor, acknowledges the Brutish Moor, King George. And let me go here. Let me show y'all this. So British ruler in 1774. We're still dealing with Noble Drew Ali dates. Who's the ruler? George. Look up King George. Of course, they're going to make him pale, but that's the British Moor who was ruling over these Slavs at the time. So we got timelines, dates, and people and exactness on what we're talking about with our demonstrations. Let's go back to this. So King George is saying he acknowledges the said United States. No, who's the United States? King George, because the United States is not North America. The United States is New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Peninsula, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Those are the 13 colonies. That's what the United States is. Right? New England. So he says to be free and sovereign as independent states. So King, this is when they got their independence right here with this document in Article 1. All this language right here in 1783, that's when they got their independence. 1783. When did they enter into a treaty with the Moors? 1780s, right? A couple years later. Now they were able to. It's clicking. Is it clicking now? We need to know law and history. This, after all, it's our own. It's our stuff. It's our culture. We need to know what went down, right? So now we already know about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786, ratified 87. We know there was a letter from George Washington to the Sultan. Now it makes sense why in that letter he's saying what? In that letter, they're thanking the Moors for their assistance and are hoping that they will be useful, produce merchandise and products for themselves. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship in 1787 allowed them to sell the seas and engage in commerce and protected them on the seas. Think of it as hiring a security company, right? So that treaty protected them. and recognize them as a nation because they weren't even recognized as a nation. These were colonists, pilgrims, serfs, vagabonds, Quakers. That this treaty gave them international sway to be considered a nation. They're looked at by the international community as a nation now. Why? Because a sovereign power, a sultanate, a caliphate recognized them. A ruler of a national government recognized them. Sultan Moulay, Sultan Muhammad, Sultan Sidi Muhammad, his son, Sultan Moulay, etc. Um, yeah, I open the floor for that. I open the floor for any type of thoughts from anybody. We can have a conversation on that before Benjamin May gets into his demonstration. Mutazamadi Islam.
So George Washington wrote that letter because all us was robbing and stealing from them and busting their boats up and everything. So he needed protection. So he asked the Sultan of Morocco for protection. And he was thanking the Sultan for his assistance. You know what I'm saying? Because we were already great navigators and all that. So at the end of the day, it does make sense. Everything you, yeah, that was nice, Moff. I like that, bro.
Wow. Islam.
Islam, I got a question. I hate to go back, man, but I definitely want to make sure I have an understanding. So I'm familiar with the Day of Reconquest, and what is it, like January 1st or 2nd in Europe, that they celebrate the defeat of the Moors, and they Christianized the Moors, the Muslims, and the Jews, where we get the Moriscos from, right?
Right.
Who were practicing Judaism and everything like that in secret, but because they only because they were Christianized. So I understand that, but how did we get into nobility? Unless you're saying that Isabella and Ferdinand and all of them were already Moors.
Yes.
Unless
It's
I'm missing
infighting.
something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. We were infighting. So the Christian Moors was
So
beefing against the Muslim, caliphate, Muslim, Sultan and Moors. You know what I'm saying? The Moors that still had the sultans and emperors, or the Moors that turned Roman that was doing the kings and queens and Christian monarchs and all that. They was beefing against us, our own people.
so you saying some of them were Christians or they were all Moors?
Oh, they were Moors, but
Because
they're politically were Christian. So like King George, he's a Christian Moor. Saint Maurice, he's a Christian Moor. King Louis, he's a Christian Moor.
but no, well, I guess what I'm saying like was the makeup of most of, because I understand that when they say Spanish Moors or whatever the case may be, they were still dark in descent. They spoke Spanish, they had Spanish names, yada yada yada. But when you get to like Hernan Cortez, Alfonso, or El Sabio, called the Learned One, who basically copied the astrology from the Moors, from us Muslim Moors, and took that back to the Christians, to the Christian side, and then so they utilize that for their astrology and their calendars and all their whole system and everything they set up. So I'm saying, are you saying, is it like today how predominantly the Christian side are Europeans or white folks, but then you have some blacks that are mixed in there here and there, woo 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 woo, but then on the opposite side, us Muslims and Israelites were all swarthy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
As
So
are we breaking it down like that, or are we saying that all of them, everybody in Europe was just Moors and we were just fighting? Like that's what I'm trying to get an understanding of.
yeah. Oh, and Islam Jabbar too. I hate when I don't
Because
read
then,
everybody.
my question is like, well, then where did the pale skin people come from?
Okay. That's great. I'm glad. Okay. That's
After
great.
race, they created race.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So where they come from. So I'm gonna address a couple things that you brought up. So yes, you are correct. When you start studying the Punic Wars, that because I give you a timeline from like the first century of what they
Okay.
call the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians and the Sumerians going to war with Rome and Byzantine and all these people. That was going on for 700 years because that happened all the way to the 1400s. Now we're talking about the Ottomans and Muhammad II. It's always been wars against our people that kept the original creed and the ones that wanted to do the perverted Roman thing. We was beefing for
Right.
years. Yeah. So you know, but now the blonde hair, blue eyed people, while these things was going on, were our Slavs. They were just the grunt workers. We'll give some of them the science, and that's what led to them starting creating Freemasonic lodges later because they took some of the science and
Right.
symbolized it and start doing doing what they do with it. But originally, these were just Slavs. We would give them feathers and mark them, and that to signify what clan they belong to because
Right.
all different Moors from Tripoli, from Tunis, different body politics or nation states of Moors within the empire had Slavs. So we had to distinguish like who Slav belonged to who. Oh, okay, this Slav belonged to the Tunis Moors over there. You know what I mean? Okay, yeah, yeah. So I'm just kind of throwing a lot of different stuff now just to help you, just for help for for clarity purposes. But so one aspect, yeah, it was infighting. The pale people were just in the position of Slavs. Later, the Roman Moors would use the Slavs as torpedoes to go to war against their brother, pretty much. Um, and if they were successful in the war, they were instructed to give 10% of their spoils back to the head Roman, which is either Constantine crew or later when they start having the Pope system, the Pope, right, or whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that these Slavs were still sent by melanated people. We just don't understand that as we go through the John D. Rockefeller system. So we think of blonde hair, blue eyed people is the devil. It's bigger than that. It's a bigger story. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
hopefully I answered. Hopefully
So the original people that were already here in these lands, correct, were copper tone people, the
yeah,
native people, the people
you kind of breaking up. Is that me or damn? I think I'm freezing.
fight us, to war with us, to rape our women and impregnate our women with their
So
seeds.
basically infiltrate. Yeah.
Correct. So I'm thinking around that time, that's how they got their bloodline in it. Because if you ever met someone that do that genealogy thing, every time I meet somebody that do that genealogy thing, they always have European, have this part Irish, this part this part that. None of them races of people were here when this shit first started. Pardon my language. So what happened through the rapes, through maybe the consensual sex that went on between these Slavs and our people. Okay, boom. Now you have a mulatto, right? Now those mulattoes have children, right? And then next thing you know, there's no reproducing with a copper tone person in the equation no more. So therefore, when you have generations of no more producing with a copper tone person, that makes you more of a Slavic race, a Slavic nature. That's what I'm thinking that happened, bro. Because it's kind of crazy. Because you're right. Where the hell did these Slavs come from? If Ashik is telling us that we all were copper tone back day, somebody had to drop something somewhere and be like, "Yo, cause havoc." It ain't just come. They ain't just pop out of
Right.
nowhere. You feel me?
Yeah,
So I'm
Right.
yeah,
thinking.
well, yeah,
I was
fellas. Let me.
asking. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Larry. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. Yeah, so you have what was known as amalgamation. So yes, that's true. The original Europeans were called Gramades. They were the original people, and they were copper tone, brass, olive
Right.
hue complexion people.
Right.
And you had from the Caucasoid Mountains, you had these Slavs or Caucasians, and they were called the Cro-Magnons, and they began intermixing. Okay, and then that's where the amalgamation began to take place. And then you also have to keep in mind the environment where they were inhabiting. It wasn't near the equator; it was up near the northern parts of Europe, so the climate is much colder, and so the
Mhm.
body goes through adaptation in order to survive. So um,
Right.
typically Caucasians have longer pointed nose, and this was because of all the snow glare, not snow glare, excuse me, all the ice and the wind. So their nose, their characteristics, their bodies became hairier. They began transforming, if I will, transforming over time, generation over time. They begin transforming and developing, and then and then it became a time where they could no longer produce the copper tone any longer.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? This
Right,
is
right.
how these people came into existence. This is how it all took place. But yes, it was just to start it off. It was with intermixing, and that's how it all took place. So,
Islam. Let
So,
me
so
let
so
in
me
my
real quick, just real
So
quick.
can I
Let me
say?
interject real quick. Let me just greet some people before I lose track of who came in here. Real quick. Brother Reggie L, Islam,
Islam more.
Brother
Reggie,
Shaolin Bay,
Reggie.
Shaolin Bay,
Islam,
peace and love.
Islam Morris.
Mr.
Islam.
All right, who was that? Who was talking for was that
I
Trail?
was, yeah, I was trying to say so. So it sounds like basically like the origin of it is like you said, like some of our people came and they went through the different climate change and stuff like that. And even to this day, you can still see that two black people can make, a light skin or a pale or a albino and stuff like that. And I wanted to ask you, Larry, so are you saying the other group, because you said it was two, did you say it was two different groups of like
Well, okay, so yes, and this is you can
okay,
actually do the research, do archaeological and anthropological studies. It would show that the original people of Europe were copper tone, brass,
right.
or olive hue complexion. This is science. This is proven.
Mm.
But what took place was amalgamation. They began intermixing. They began intermixing over generation time. Skin complexions became lighter and more fairer, if I will. It became more fairer over time, and that was added with the climate in Europe. This all took place. Then you had the Punic Wars and everything taking place, and before you know it, you have this different set of people that is now occupying many of these lands in Europe.
Okay, okay. So my question is, so is it because I'm trying to just making sure I got it straight. So it's coming from some, like you said, change their color and complexion through weather and stuff, but there's also another group, like where would they come from? If I'm coherent it correctly.
Let me interject. Let me interject. 'Cause
Okay.
I want to just I felt that's where the brother was coming from originally. He was like, how did they come about initially? Because they have to
Yes.
come about first to even mix with them. How did they even come about? So we have to remember that there's no J in the Bible, but they say Jacob. Adept Moors know him as Yaqub, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
when we're talking about genetics, the gene splicing and mixing, the genetic experience that took place in Central America, right? That was the creation of this species of mankind, or we say the Albion. They have what they call leprosy in the Bible, but they just don't have no melanin in their epidermis. They got it in their eyes and their hair, right? Blonde hair, blue eye stock of people, what they loosely refer to as the Germanic tribes. It was too hot where they got created, right there by the equator. All right. So we had to ship them to a colder part of the planet that was more suitable for them because the sun was seeking to kill them. They was getting cooked by the equator. They was literally dying. So we had to ship them under the jurisdiction of one of our empresses, Queen Europa. So therefore, that's how they got the nickname Europeans. They were under the jurisdiction of Queen Europa.
So
So, so the
it's
Yakub story,
So it,
okay, so sorry about that, bro.
no, go
Jacob,
ahead.
okay, the letter J didn't exist in biblical times, correct? So Jacob in the Bible is Yakub, the big head scientist that did the gene splicing.
It's based on it. Remember, the Bible has a lot of things going on in the Bible. We also talking about astrological constellations, but yes, we're talking about a scientist that did creation. So we look at the island of Dr. Moreau, Frankenstein. These are all symbolic movies and things that to reenact what we're talking about.
So,
You know,
so it's oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was basically saying, so it's basically safe to say, like, uh, black make all colors.
Quote
Right,
unquote.
right.
Quote unquote, yeah, quote
For
unquote.
Quote
the
unquote, quote unquote, at the end of the day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because we want to get that word out of our vocabulary, brother, respectfully. And I yield the floor.
Yeah, but we
Yeah,
get
I didn't know
So,
how else to, put like for like, okay, that the highly melanated men, let me say it
yeah,
that way.
yeah. We the original man. Like I say, back to
Original.
Genesis, we had dominion of the earth. We had dominion of the earth. Anything that grows on the earth. Our thing is to. Because what happened is we start manipulating the sciences that we start comprehending. Like, oh man, we got water.
So what race was Yakub Moth? What race was he? What nationality was Yakub in the scripture? Was he a copper tone man like us, or was he different?
Oh,
Yeah, he's the original man.
the original man. Yeah.
so here's my question.
So
In the Bible, so who's
that's where
Esau?
666. All that is tying together. Ooh, okay, bro, this is crazy.
So who is Esau then? Because the Hebrew Israelites claim that the white man came from Esau. Was when the two babies was born, and then one they didn't mention because they already knew what the color was, because they didn't distinguish the color, because
Well,
they assumed that everybody back then we were all copper tone and copper skin color, right? So the only
look,
one that they distinguished and they talked about was Esau, and said that he was reddish and he was hairy and all this other stuff. So they saying that's where the European comes from, is from Esau.
no, but remember you have Shem, Ham, and you have Japhet. So you get some lighter people through Japhet, but specifically when you talking about Rome and stuff like that, that's when you get into Esau and that particular fairer skin.
Now, so
But
brother,
I would say that there's other fairer skins through Shem, Ham, and Japhet. So
okay,
yeah.
Shem and Ham and Yasab, isn't those Noah's sons?
Yeah.
Okay, and Noah was perfect in his genes. That's why they say the Most High showed the symbolic story of Noah is that he was perfect in his genes. So we can fairly say that Noah was a copper tone man.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
the scripture is telling us that the generations of races came from those three guys. Is that what y'all saying?
It's just whatever starting point that you want to start from and do a demonstration. But most people they'll start from Abraham. Some people will start
Got
from Prophet Muhammad. It just depends. But yes, these are all our people. These are just our ancestors. That's all we're talking about. It's our people. You
Right.
know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
You know.
So just to clarify,
Mm-hmm.
so the brother, I think Brother Larry Bay has said that all the Moors in Europe were first the Grimaldi people. I've heard that before. So if I'm understanding, we must have left at one point and came back around to follow up with the story that's being told that says that at some point in time, Moorish Jews went into Europe, and then the year following, the Moorish Muslims went into Europe and civilized Europe. But when we got there, they weren't already civilized, because they had just got done being ran by who? Like the Visigoths, if I'm understanding that correctly.
So yeah, the Moors.
So we must have left at one point in time.
this is
Yeah,
deep.
yeah, because they were mingling amongst themselves. Remember, you gotta take it back to when they first got created and why they got shipped to Asia or the Iberian Peninsula or Asia Minor or Europa. Why they got sent there in the first place? Because of the climate. They were about to die off. So once they up there, they practices, right? They like babies. They observing on how they should move. Okay, all these nobles got all these kingdoms, all this silk, all this gold, all these fly garments, and
Mhm.
these pyramids, and they got government structure. They civilized, and they know how to do all this stuff. They know how to navigate the sea. So they taking notes. Okay, but they instinctively like remember they come from the troglodyte the monkey gene mixed with the Mobitis. So they instincts is animalistic at that
Right.
stage, especially. You know what I mean? So they wasn't bathing, homosexuality. Now you got
Right. Right.
now you got all these diseases. Right now you got these. That's where the Moors come and had to clean up the plagues. We had to show them
Yeah,
how to
but some of
bathe.
us took the
We had
customs
to show
of
these
their
people how to
wicked
bathe. We had
ways.
to take our time with these people. We literally was taking them to bathhouses and showing them how to bathe themselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
some of us took on their wicked ways too, Marv.
yeah, that's true
Mm.
too. That's true
You know
too.
what I'm saying? Check this out. It gets even deeper. I don't know. I forgot the verse, but in the scripture, remember when the Most High commanded His people to slew all of them that they find in the land, to slew them, which means to kill them off. I'm thinking that was the command to kill off Yaqub's creation, but we didn't do that. Our ancestors didn't do that. You understand? That's where the universal energy shift happened, and we wasn't on top no more. We became the bottom, and then the Slavs became the top because we were supposed to way back when, before the ships and all this other stuff we talking about, we were supposed to slew them in that land, but we didn't. We let them flourish. So I think the Most High flipped the whole script. And that's why we in the position where we in now, and we got the battle tooth and nail to get back on top.
I feel you on that, and I want to add with that too that I think that you know these issues that came out in this physical manifestation is through eventually what our ancestors or us, however you want to look at it, with our disconnection or our disobedience with our creator, with the natural flow of life. And you notice that throughout history, when individuals that tell you when we stop going against that natural flow of life, that negative consequences happen. So it started in our family first. You know what I mean? We was a strong kingdom. And then we started fighting with each other, being disloyal and all this stuff with each other. And now we dealing with these negative influences and stuff like we created, like we just went over. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
starts from our inner spirit.
Correct. Islam, I agree, brother. I
You
agree.
hear?
But I'm just so confused on how these Slavs end up like all
Islam
the
Noble.
I see it.
Wow.
Islam Noble. Hey, I
Salam.
want to say this. So nowadays, when you become a basketball, football player, superstar, the main thing that you'll see is that the successful so-called Moorish men of America, they go get a foreign or a different type of female. So I just told the Moor, I say, look at Drake, look at his father, look at his son. So when you got, it's a book called 101 Facts About the Negro, talk about in North Carolina, South Carolina, they had to make laws that the Moors, that they had to stop having so many white slaves. So what people don't know about is this white slavery. So I just put some in the chat. It was talking about, in fact, look, let me read it for y'all real quick. Hold on. But I want to say the Moors, like you said, it is about the family because they say honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. So when I used to tell these females, the best thing you can do is have, carry your seed on. So when you carry your seed on and your seed don't look like you kind of getting away from honoring your ancestors because now your son don't look like you. Your son don't look like your grandfather. So not like you say, hold on, let me read this to y'all. It say the Black Indian Wars. The Black Indians of Europe. The bloodlines of North America are older than the nations of Africa, formed at Berlin Conference in 1884 through 85. The ideal that all melanated people are Africans who belong to Africa can be traced back to Robert Finley and the American Colonization Society. It was taught to justify their campaign exporting free-born people of North America to their colonies being created in Africa like Libya, like Liberia. The indigenous so-called Indian of every continent is melanated or black in phenotype. Names such as the Aurignacian, Minoan, Phoenician, Etruscan, Celtic, etc., represent the original people of Europe, which is not a continent. It is a peninsula originally governed by Africans. At the Battle of Al Arcos, over 300,000 so-called white Christians challenged the Moorish ruler Yaqub al-Mansur To their surprise, they were defeated, chained in groups of 50, and shipped to Africa, where they were sold. This was 300 years before the now infamous Atlantic slave trade. The people labeled white Caucasian by the United States were sold and traded in Africa as slaves. The word slave was derived from their ethnicity, Slav. White slavery did not end until the conclusion of the Barbary Wars on July 3rd, 1815. So I just set out there to say it's the reason how the Slav first got into power is because we started we started we started making them basically based on our bloodlines. So I mean, our children became more and more. Our children became more and more uh, looking like us. They look different, and then these children that came from us, they end up pushing us out. So who are these people? These are the amalgamated mulatto later generations that come to push out. So like they say, the Moors were kicked out of Spain and all that. So those were Sephardic. That's what I want to tell Michael. When we talk about colonizers, it wasn't the white, white blue eye. They were not the colonizers. The Sephardic Jews and so it was Catholicism, Christianity and Catholicism. It wasn't about black because all the people that kicked us out, a lot of them were black. So Moorish or whatever. They were Catholics and they were originally Jews and Muslims. They switched. So they say, okay, we Catholics, we Christian now, we doing this, and it's a part in one of those Bridgerton or whatever. But the wild men, the lady blew up the church, and the church was a bunch of wild men because they end up crossing out their names. They say, "I'm not my father's." They denounce they royal noble castle and family, and they put an X on their head, and they were considered the wild men. So so these Caucasians, they end up being a bunch of wild. They were the wild Caucasians. They end up grouping together through religion, and through religion, they start putting us out. So Jews and Muslims, Jews and Moors were all the same thing. They were just one, Judaism. The other one was, Muslim. But they were all so-called black people. And they start pushing these black people out because the mixed ones, it was the mixed ones. So I just want to say the people and how they came over here, we did the same thing because the Huguenots and the Sephardic Jews, these were prestigious men. They had great jobs, great occupation, everything, but they were the colonists and they got kicked, and they didn't want to. They were coming from Iberia and Spain, and they went to Europe and Britain, England, and then they immediately left because they didn't want them there, or whatever. The kicking them out. So when they came here, they started getting these Jewish Sephardic men, these Moors. They were enslaving these Slavs that were coming over here, and the Portuguese and these people. So other Moors were bringing these Slavs and bringing them to these colonies. And then these Sephardic Jews and Moors, they were the colonists. They start impregnating the Slavs as well. And now, three, 4 generations, those Slavic children, they're the ones you think are, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, but we think they're white people, but these were all the babies of Moors that was mixing in, and now their grandchildren look like Drake's baby. Drake's son, blonde hair with blue eyes, but his grandfather was a brown skinned man with an afro. So that's how it happened. That's all I want to say. Are you?
Wow. The brother Benjamin Bay has a presentation. I want to keep that in mind. Whenever you're ready, Benjamin Bay. But Larry Bay, you can say something.
No, I was just going to say amalgamation. Well, that's exactly what he explained was amalgamation, when he referenced that the George Washingtons of the world look like great Drake's grandson, and their grandfathers had woolly hair, kinky, thick lips, brass skin, and look like you and I on this call, But that's exactly what we're saying. How over time and generation, adaptation, adaptation, and change in genetics and so forth takes place, and you have a different set of people roaming the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow. Well, you got the floor, Benjamin Bay, if you're ready. You should have access. You should have access to share if you're trying to share something.
Oh yeah, you can share. You can start to share.
You got access to share it if you.
Okay. Wow. All right, BET. Can everybody see this? So I may move Brother Mafia up and down or whatever, but I don't know if y'all can.
Over there, move. Over there, move. Float. I'm floating.
I just put bro in the top, right here. But right, I decided to go astrology again. You know what I mean? So, uh, who better than the great himself? So right here you got Hermes, Joseph Ascadon, worldwide known as Nipsey Hussle, manifested on Thursday, the day pertaining to the planet Jupiter, August 15th, 1985, Gregorian calendar year at Gardena, California. It was like two places, like Gardena and then like LA, but since it's just in that area, as long as you got the time, you should be more accurate. And yeah, honoring my ancient foremothers and forefathers, being in pure heart, being sincere intent, being in love, being honored. Because dealing with astrology, you want to have, a pure heart and, you don't want to take advantage of quote unquote, knowing things. And this somebody's consciousness you're dealing with as well. You know what I mean? So you want to be pure and looking at this, kind of like a counselor almost. You want to be, honorable with the person. You don't want to take their valuable information and use it for bad. So I will always say that before I start anything, because astrology can be a tool that could be used for bad. So we're not doing that here. We'll use it for good. But here we go. Right here as a picture, Nip Hussle in his national garb, and I chose this picture in specific because we're all about nationality here, and he's in his nationality flag right there. With his father. I'm not sure who the woman is to the right there, but nationality is the order of the day. And he was from a nation. You know what I mean? He was Moorish, but within that, he was Eritrean. So we want to always put nationality at the forefront of things. You know what I'm saying? And right here, this is chart, you know. Nipsey's Trinity numerical code pertaining to his astrology chart. Nipsey's ascendant is Aquarius rising. So right there on the left, that blue, watery, wavy looking thing. Nipsey's ascendant is Aquarius ruled by the planet Saturn. 10, 11, which is, the 10th house right here, and the 11th house, which is career and hopes and dreams. Career being the 10th house, 11th being gains and hopes, which is status, 10th house again, like I was saying, and sharing, which is the 11th house of gain. So he basically shared his thoughts and his creativity. Nipsey's sun numerical code is 564, which is creativity, which is the sun, service, which is the sixth house, home, which is the four right there. Nipsey's moon numerical code is four, which is his home, six, which is service, home, which is four again. And if you look up here in the sixth house where this blue Cancer sign is, you'll see his sun, moon, Mercury, all and Mars all conjunct together. And that creates the Mercury code, which is, five, which is the planet, sun, six is the house, number six right there. And four is the sign. So, because Cancer is the fourth sign of the zodiac, just kind of break it down and make it a little easier. You know what I mean? Testimony pertaining to Nipsey Hussle's Trinity display on an outward expression. So how he's presented, kind of like the outside of a house, like how he, steps to you, like, hey, how you doing? Our flesh, our body. You know what I mean? Aquarius energy by always wanting to gain and have high hopes for himself and others around him, which takes a great responsibility and discipline, with Saturn, his ruling planet, which gave him a great patience on the up and down journey of success, hashtag marathon. So, because, within success, it ain't an uphill battle. Everybody know that. So if you're not ready for some type of resistance, you might as well just cut it out right there. You know what I mean? So it's always ups and downs. Make sure your first lap is better than your last, but take your pace. Nipsey's moon in Cancer, once again, right here, will go up, to the fifth house, the moon, 26 or 5 degrees, 26 minutes in the sixth house. Nipsey's moon in Cancer allows him to enjoy the comfort of being surrounded by loved ones in your own home or his own home. Nip enjoyed the feeling of being belonging to a tribe, be it your own home, family, or a tribe of friends. Nip is an understanding person with strong feelings of sympathy. uh, Nip always enjoys looking after others, either through cooking them something tasty or simply leading an ear to their troubles. And I saw his brother open, or him and his brother open like a burger stand out there, so that's a way that, he's showing his Cancerian, saying energy, by cooking and how you nurture somebody, you give them food that sustains someone's life. You know what I mean? And I'm sure he never doubted to protect his friends and loved ones, through troubles as well. The sixth house of Nip's birth chart suggests that health, intellectual, emotional, or physical component is a major focus of his life. Other components of his birth chart may indicate whether intellectual, emotional, and/or physical health is the focus. So that would be like the aspects. You know what I mean? Would get it deeper into that. So it would show like where and why he, want to portray the health part. And he was talking about Dr. Sebi and things of that nature, and he would like stop smoking on occasions to get clear. And that goes back to health, and that goes back to intellectual. So if you can stop the stuff you're doing, you can think clearer. You know what I mean? So all is mind. You know what I mean? And that goes back to Saturn being disciplined. Which goes back to Aquarius. Nip's sun is in the zodiac sign of Cancer, indicating that he is a caring and nurturing individual with a strong need for family and comfort. Like the crab, he may appear a tough outer shell, but he is vulnerable underneath and will withdraw into his shell and home if feeling threatened. This withdrawal can happen often as he has strong emotional reactions. These strong emotions can be directed positively into caring for and protecting others, particularly your family and loved ones. Sun in the sixth house of Nip's birth chart, meaning that his workplace is the area in his life which he really shone. So, he created music, and you create music in your home, kind of like Brother Mafia, you know what I mean? Where he works is, where he, shines at the most, so that would be, kind of like a parallel. These strong emotions in the workplace. It's here that Nip's organizational skills and ability to serve others really come to the forefront or to the forefront. Nipsey is likely to benefit from any job that requires him to be of service to others. So that goes back to the sixth house. In fact, he has the ability to go a long way towards helping to elevate the suffering of humanity. The highest human act is to inspire. So you ever, heard him say that all he ever did was, live to inspire someone through his walk of life. I mean, you didn't actually have to do what he did, but off of what he did, you could be inspired. And that all comes from all this activity in his sixth house of service. He's like, he's always working in the studio, this, what I'm saying, creating this, because where the sun is, where you shine. So all of his drive, his emotions, his communications is of service. You know what I mean? And he wanted to make sure it was comforting and nurturing, and music is that, so that's one way, he serviced the world through his sixth house. So it's really like, no pun intended, Nip hustle, because the sixth house is called the hustle house. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes.
Your stomach, it separates everything. It's constantly working. You know what I'm saying? It's constantly digesting something. So that's kind of how he lives. He's constantly doing something. He never kind of taking a break. You know what I mean? Kind of like a marathon. Okay, cool. This first lap, boom. Second lap, boom. But pushing forward here. Who was Nipsey Hussle? So right here, I have the planet Neptune with that dark arrow pointed to it and circled in the blue. It is important to know that Neptune, which is right here, that's what I was pointing to, in the 11th house in Sagittarius. It takes about 164 years to make a complete cycle, spending about 13 years in each sign. Therefore, the interpretation of Neptune in the sign applies to a generation rather than an individual, meaning like everyone born in 1985 has Neptune in Sagittarius, so they'll operate unconsciously or consciously this way. And same so forth with whatever year you were born and with outer planets such as Neptune, Pluto, and what is it? Uranus. Those outer planets, affect generations. This generation possesses the gift of spiritual vision. So it's one video, I should have put it in here, but he goes, music is spiritual. If you really think about it, it's spiritual. You're going to a place where nobody can go and you're coming back with something. You know what I mean? And that's spiritual, you know what I mean? So that will attest to his Neptune being in the 11th house of sharing. And I saw that on the internet, and that's 11th house of streaming. You know what I mean? So it's kind of as above, so below, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They will be able to help humanity focus on spiritual goals and become more expansive and inclusive of di- uh, differing races and beliefs. We know there's only one race, but so on and so forth. While Nipsey will search for spiritual and humanitarian friendships, he may escape from reality through groups. So that would be why, he joined the organizations at an early age, say the Crips or the Community Revolution in Progress, what I mean, before it went south, his earn just to be with a group, and the game and the hope and the share, what I'm saying? And before the Crip organization went self-sabotage, it was for, humanity or that community right there, to uplift it, you know what I mean? And that was through friends, and all those people in the group were his friends growing up. He had the ability to be of service to friends and within groups. So, the group he was, he kind of changed the view of what you would think a quote unquote Crip member would be. So he really was community revolution in progress, if you think about it, what I mean? So he kind of 180 turned about what it is. He's like, yeah, this is where I'm from, but I'm taking all this energy and I'm pinpointing it, towards something that's going to elevate us instead of self-sabotage us for everyone there. What's Nipsey Hussle's purpose? You know what I'm saying? And everyone, purpose would be family here. And I chose this picture because a lot of his planetary energies are in Cancer, and a lot of what he did was set up for his family. He's like, I want the money to outlast us when we're not here. Know what I mean? So he worked hard enough to save and so that his family can be secure and have a foundation. I mean, so you can't have a secure family, in my opinion, you don't have a foundation for them. You know what I mean? And more science is a great tool for that. But Uranus right here, tried to put it in the green, but it's in the Scorpio sign 10th house right there. That's Uranus, what we're about to talk about. And that's creates the purpose. So you want to know your purpose in your chart, find Uranus. Uranus in Scorpio, Nipsey is a part of a generation which will experience highly charged emotions and transformation. He and his peers are likely to hold many innovative ideas about change. Nip is mad resourceful, but may also have times when anxiety about the world's resources is at the forefront of his mind. Nipsey will enjoy an unconventional career through which you can contribute something original and worthwhile to society. Well, that would be his music. So, like, music isn't like a 9 to 5, it's fickle. So you can put out a song and nobody can like it. You put out a song and everyone can like it. You know what I mean? So it's like a shot in the dark, which is 11th house. Is like you're hoping to gain something for what you created in the fifth house. So you take your fifth house of creativity and you put it to the 11th house of streaming and gaining things in hopes that everyone else would, see how you see it, and kind of like it. Um, he may feel restless within one profession and find he is sometimes wanting a total change in life direction, with his Uranus being in the 10th house of career and profession. And I remember he was like he sold all his cars and stuff to buy music equipment, and that's a year in his change. He was like, "No, I'm done with this unlegal money. I'm gonna try to get this quote unquote legal money." You know what I mean? So that's a year in his 10th house change. He changed his career. You know what I mean? It's sudden change. Like, nah, you want these rims? Cool. Psh, you want this car? Boom. Psh, it's yours. I'm gonna go buy this music equipment, and this is what I'm gonna live off of. You know what I mean? This is gonna be my profession. This is gonna be my career. It's not gonna be off of something that I'm looking over my shoulder with. You know what I mean? So that would be the as above, so below of Nip Hussle suddenly changing his career and profession. You know what I mean? And it was kind of done like behind the scenes. It wasn't, something you just seen it. He wasn't like projecting all that. He had to do a lot of behind the scenes work, failing, what I mean, learning things and to create that solid foundation where he had it where it is now. Nip Sec Team. And right here, I used another chart from another website to show, many sources or whatever, and show different things and show how right here in the sixth house to the far right, it's still the same planetary lineups, as right here, So there's many ways to skin a cat, but you should not be skinning cats or anything, from this. So they say things like that. Nighttime chart. Nighttime team planets, the moon, Venus, and Mars, which are right here in the sixth house, where you see the moon, that blue, and Venus, which is definitely right here in the fifth house in Gemini, right there, the green, and then you see the Gemini sign. Mars function more optimally in night charts. So what makes a night chart to the far right, you see his sun, the circle, and the dot is on the horizon. It's really like a little debacle in the astrology world, is if like a sun being on the horizon at daytime or a nighttime chart. Because when the sun goes down, like on the like 5 or 6, it's still daytime outside, but it ain't as light, you know. But they chose it to be a nighttime chart if the sun is on the horizon. So, and it was like 8 o'clock. So when he was born. So this is a nighttime chart. So the strong planets in this chart would be Moon, Venus, and Mars. The benefit of the sect: Venus gives more harmony in the house she is in and the house that she rules, which would be the fifth house of communication and creativity. So that would be Nip's love to create music, and he communicated his love through music. You know what I mean? That was his fifth house. So he created, his love, and you would say money as well. He was all money in, and Venus is money. So he took his love for, not love for money, but this the anchor of what I'm doing. Well, my creativity, money is the anchor, and I'm gonna use that to, get everything else that I need in life. And I'm gonna hopefully get that through my 11th house. So I'm gonna take my creativity here in the fifth house, shoot it to 11th house. Oh, somebody hear it, boom. Jay-Z buys 100 copies of my CD, boom, at $100. I gained a lot from my creativity. And I got paid for it as well, which is Venus. And she gives she can give a gift for the arts, beauty, friendship, and inner or outer experience that creates connection or harmony. In a nighttime chart, Saturn can be a more problematic planet that describes blocks or more difficult experience in the house it is in and the house it rules. And in Nip's chart, Saturn is in the ninth house, right there. I don't know if you can see it in Libra. So that would probably blockage and restraints on his relationships and probably with his father as well, because the ninth house in Vedic astrology is the father. So, and in his life, his dad did move out of the home, at an early age. So that was as above, so below, him being kind of cut off from his father figure, which kind of drove him to, find that other father figure, I would say, in the streets or wherever it may be, or through music or whatever. The numeric code for the moon, once again, 464, home, service, home. Numeric code for Venus, 735. So the seventh planet, or the seventh planet, that was rules. And it's in the third sign of Gemini in the fifth house of creativity. A numeric code for Mars is the first planet right there for the first sign. The sixth house of service in the fourth sign of Cancer. Nips zodiacal releasing, which is Time Lord, period. So whatever year you was born and the sign it was on, that time, that planet rules that time period. So here, in 1985, basically when he was here, he was ruled by Jupiter. And that goes back to the day he was born, Thursday, Jupiter. You know what I mean? And this whole thing was about expanding, and Jupiter is about expansion and spiritual things. You know what I mean? So he kind of used his music to spread spirituality. Kind of like these words are spirituals I swim across these waves with. You know what I mean? So I like to look at that as like, words are spiritual. If you know, listen to Noble Ali say everything I say is spiritual, and water is emotion. So we got to use our breath as in spirit to control our emotions. So these words are spirituals we swim against these waves with, because we have to control our breath again and how we think to control our emotions. So you control the wind to control the water. You know what I mean? So, take that what you will. But right here it shows, the first 12 years of his life, he was ruled by Jupiter. You know, the next period of his life from, 97 to 2012, he was ruled by Mars. So this probably was a very focused time. This is probably where he was like, yeah, this is the all money in thing. I'm really finding myself. I need resources. He probably was a little edgy. And I remember him saying one time he wished he would have like slowed down and listened to people. He was like, if you're not helping me, forget you. And that's a very Mars thing. If you focus, like, if you're not on my same page, I'm not trying to hear you. But you got to listen to people that on not on your same page so you can know everything. You know what I mean? Because if you think you know everything, like Mars is about me, you're gonna end up crashing. You know what I mean? So it's important to know where you're at. And for the latter part of his life, from 2012 to demise in 2019, but from the 2012 mark to 2020, he would been in the Venus part of life. So that'd be relationships, more money type things. And he was speaking about Bitcoin and, setting up businesses and, having outstanding relationships, and I think his last tweet was like, there's nothing like having strong enemies, and that's a relationship. You know what I mean? I'm not sure what that is, but it's wisdom in that, having a strong enemy, kind of like knowing the your opponent that you're about to fight. He was quote unquote an enemy. So it's a blessing to know him because you kind of know what they bring to the table because they're attacking you. You know what I'm saying? That's what enemies do. Enemies attack. So it's good to know that you got someone that was attacking you kind of on your team now or whatever. You know what I mean? Or however you want to take it. But the last part of his life was about, relationships and building up relationships and focusing on the money, but making sure the money is stable and not like being a slave to the money. You know what I mean? And right here, I chose a picture once again about nationality, and the headdress of the mothers here. You know what I mean? And showing the sons honoring mother. Despite the BS that goes on, and how we are out, men are out here, going back and forth, and ultimately it's still about family. And this shows his Cancer energy again, Cancer being mother or woman, you know what I mean? So he's always coming back to that and earns for that, and it's beautiful. Nip Hustle's annual perfections, which is lit up right there. And once again, 10th house. Time Lord, a Time Lord in the planet that is activated during a specific year according to your perfection's wheel or your zodiac. This planet corresponds to whichever zodiac sign is attached to each slice of your perfection year chart. In the world of perfections, a year starts and ends with your birthday. So basically, on Nip's like last birthday, or started right here, boom, he was in a Mars or Scorpio cycle. So Mars was ruling this part of his birthday until his next birthday, basically. Nipsey's 10th house perfection year is a great year for setting and achieving career goals because 10th house deals with the career, and as he was showing, he put out his album, his like career was like kind of on the trajectory, put out his, first official album, boom, from here, let's go to the moon. We go through 10th house perfection year at the age of 9, 21, 33, 45, 57, 69, 81. And not ironically, he passes at 33 and he was like at the height of his, career, you know? So once again, as above, so below, he was living out his planetary life. At 33, he was basically on fire, It's the time when Nip stepped into the spotlight once again. He was doing all this behind the scenes work, Scorpio, behind the scenes, not getting recognized. That's where the marathon thing comes from, When scorpions are underground, that's where they travel. Then they pop out, and then when they pop out, it's really serious, And everybody's like, oh, and then they go back. Um, and his public image becomes into focus. With Mars being the ruling planet, Nib would have tons of energy to propel his career, 10th house, beyond the stars by bringing the unseen Scorpio to the scene in the 10th house of public and status. And this picture right here would, sum that up because he's in the public, clearly he has some type of status and who he is, and he's inspiring, the youth right here. And it's all about that. You know what I mean? So this young man right here in years to come will see this and look into, Nipsey's life and like, oh man, wow. I know that whatever hill I come across is just a little hill, or mountain I come across is going to be a small hill. So in conclusion, what I mean, he was, taking his influence and being positive despite the early turmoil, what I mean? And that's all our lives, whatever, BS we got to go through to shell who we truly are to really inspire the world to be who they can be and kind of make this little earth thing a better place. I'm not trying to be cheesy or whatever, but you can do that through the Zodiac. And but I yield. Appreciate y'all for hearing me blabble and all that.
Islam. Beautiful. Beautiful presentation, man. Beautiful presentation, man. Um, anybody got any thoughts? Anybody got any thoughts on the space that the brother?
Islam. I do have a question for the brother that just did the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Go ahead.
brother, have you ever heard of an astrolabe
Astrolabe.
or astrolabe?
Astrolabe.
When you get a chance, look up an astrolabe. You remind me of someone that would utilize this instrument, or you would probably be very fond of it once you find out how it works. But an astrolabe was a device that was used by the Muslims in Europe, and what we used to use during that time period of the Golden Ages. How we say that we used to navigate the seas. Well, this instrument was used, and it was based off of astrology, off of the sun, moon, off of the sun, the moon, and the stars. And we would be able to know where we were going and where something was, and what time it was. We also kept time on these instruments that are called astrolabes, and they're very famous to people who collect like ancient artifacts, and they're usually auctioned off in like museums. You could have seen one on the antique what's it called, the Antique Roadshow, the one that used to come on TV. But I think you would find a lot of enjoyment in the history of that Moorish astrolabe. Um, the ones in the secret societies know what an astrolabe is, and it corresponds to Moorish science and Moorish history. In fact, I know a brother who was a Mason out of the European lodges, and he when he come out of the Eastern chair as a worshipful master, they gifted him an astrolabe, and it's a very ancient piece, but I think you will find a lot of peace and connectivity with that artifact, man. Islam. I love your presentation, by the way, Islam.
Islam. Peace. 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 I just looked it up. Oh wow, it's like a not a rudder and sextant, but I see it's like a measuring type deal, like a square and compass, but it's like the circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's hard. Sure, I see the Muslim texture in it or the style. That's pretty decent for sure. Islam, bro. I put it in the chat too for
Yes,
those
sir.
who seen it because I physically never seen it. I had to look it up. I was like, oh, that really explains,
Yeah,
of
that's
how
a big piece of Moorish history in the golden age of
that's what
Islam.
like we had
A
like
major piece.
with stupid hands. We had clocks with different time zones. We just have a clock of where we were. Our clocks had like a ton of time zones on them. You know what I mean? So that goes into that as well. It's just not being like one dimensional people. But Islam, to you sharing that, bro, I appreciate that. Islam.
Alhamdulillah. Yes, sir.
Islam. Anybody else have any thoughts on the good brother Benjamin Bay laid down?
So Benjamin, I got a question. So basically, what I'm getting from your presentations, brother, is like your subject that you're presenting to us is very important for individuals as far as mastering themselves and things of that nature. Because if they understand the planets and the energies that are connected to oneself through those planets, it'll make it easier for you to reach certain levels of consciousness, more so than trying to do it on your own and trying to rely on your own understanding. So I appreciate the presentation, Islam on the presentation.
Islam, yeah, Islam. Sure. It goes back to goes Allah guides this and Allah is a zodiac. So like, you tap into your energies, you'll be all right. And it takes the blame out of things happening, as well. You kind of have to take accountability, or you can look at it like, okay, this is why I act like this. Either you can change that, or be excuse my language, be a coward and walk away. So if you really want to better yourself, not you in particular, but just in general, you look in the mirror or the zodiac or your chart and you can see it, and it's very important. And you can see like if this was practiced correctly in our communities, and looked at not like ooga booga, we probably could have a better, community, and cut out all the leaders and we need to follow this person. Like, no, we just do a little geometry and measuring in the sky and see why you're thinking and doing the things you do and like, oh, okay, cool. For sure, I'll get back in line. Boom. Instead of, the woe is me. It takes away the woe is me overall,
Yeah,
so I
but
try to
I
get
think
that thoughts.
they want us to do. They want us to like rely on our own understanding and really practice and to study the things that we should, like what you're presenting right now. Because I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and like they taught that those type of things were evil. You shouldn't practice those type of things. And I get it now. I get the whole grand scheme of what I've been imprisoned to for all my life. I thank y'all very much for freeing my mind, and I yield the floor.
And it's just recognizing patterns, just like Maya Angelou, like, wow, this planetary lineup goes with her. I'm looking at how the energies looked in their lives. And I'm like, wow, his love for communicating is in the fifth house. And he wrote. It's just simple. It's like Gemini, right? Media. Boom. Venus, love for writing, creating, whatever it may be. It could have been yodeling or whatever. It could have been whatever it could have been. But, it was like, nah, he unconsciously did that. And I'm like, oh, I see the pattern. Oh, wow. And then I do myself. I'm like, oh, dang, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I act like this. It's like the shadow boxing song, all over again. And that's a fire song too. This little shameless plug. But it really goes back, really like shadow boxing, taking your consciousness and seeing the metaphysical makeup through the zodiac. But I yield. I don't want to keep blabbering back.
Wow, that was great, man. That's I appreciate it, man. DL, did you have something? Or I wasn't sure if DL was gonna say something. All right. If nobody else has any thoughts on that space, I was going to continue where we left off. I'm gonna read a paragraph, 12 Powers of Man, dealing with zeal, and then close out with the Silent Brotherhood of the East, and then we can close out in prayer. Let me know when you can see the screen, everybody.
I can see it. Chapter
Excellent.
11.
Yep. Okay. So we're on chapter 11, dealing with zeal and enthusiasm. The ego, the free I, the imperishable and unchangeable essence of spirit, which man is, choose every state of consciousness and every condition in which it functions. It does not create the basic substances that enter into these mental structures, for these substances have been provided from the beginning, but it gives form and character to them in consciousness as men build houses of lumber, stone, and whatever material they may choose to manifest. These mental states are all constructed under the dynamic power of the great universal impulse that lies back of all action, enthusiasm and zeal. So before the action, you got to be motivated and enthused to even want to create, to manifest, right? So zeal is the mighty force that incites the winds, the tides, the storms. It urges the planet on its course and spurs the ant to great exertion. To be without zeal is to be without the zest or love to live. Zeal and enthusiasm incite to glorious achievement in every aim and ideal that the mind conceives. Zeal is the impulse to go forward, the urge behind all things. Without zeal, stagnant, inertia, not active, death would prevail throughout the universe. The man without zeal is like an engine without steam or an electric motor without a current. Energy is zeal in motion, and energy is the forerunner of every effect, right? So cause and effect, zeal is the other side of the spectrum. We must be motivated. We're here to be inspired. We're here to create. Back to what the demonstration that the brother laid down. By knowing your chart, no matter what you've been here to do, how you affect it, it's a way to balance it out. Once you figure that out, now you at peace. Now your creative thoughts can shine. You're not feeling so pressured for whatever reason. Now your natural creative state, and you'll be more zealous to have zeal to create. So it's hand in hand. I just wanted to read a paragraph in that section. in this chapter, dealing with zeal and the importance of it. Stay inspired. Don't be pessimistic. Any thought before I transition to the Brotherhood of the East in that space? Okay, so we're on chapter 18, Silent Brotherhood of the East. Yeshua passes the fifth adept degree. Heroism. The sacred temple groves, which were rich statues, monuments, and shrines. Here, Yeshua loved to walk and meditate. And after he had conquered self, he talked with nature in these groves for 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights. And then the guide took chains and bound him hand and foot and cast him into a den of hungry beasts, unclean birds, and creeping things. The den was dark as night, and the wild beasts howled. The birds in fury screamed. The reptiles hissed. And Yahshua said, "Who is it that did bind me thus? Why did I meekly sit to be bound down with chains? I tell you, none has power to bind the human soul. Of what are fetters made?" And in his might he rose, and what he thought were chains were only worthless cords that parted at his touch. And then he laughed and said, "The chains that bind men to the carcasses of earth are forged in fancy shops and made of air and welded in illusion of fires." So you can be enslaved just to your mind state. You can be enslaved just to your narrow-minded and stiff-neckedness. You can be enslaved to your stubbornness. You can be enslaved to not being open-minded, right? But you're not physically in change, are you? If man will stand and use the power of will, his chains will fall like a worthless rag. Back to that having zeal, being zealous. That's basically saying willpower. You have to have the willpower to manifest, right? For will and faith were stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made. And Yahshua stood erect among the hungry beasts and birds and said, "What is this darkness that envelopes me? 'Tis but the absence of the light. And what is the light? And what is light? 'Tis but the breath of Allah, vibrating in the rhythm of rapid thought." And then he said, "Let there be light." And with a mighty will, he stirred up the ethers. He stirred the ethers up, and their vibrations reached the plane of light. And there was light. The darkness of that den of night became the brightness of a newborn day. And then he looked to see the beasts and birds and creeping things. Lo, they were not. And Yahshua said, "Of what is soul afraid? Fear is the chariot in which man rides to death." That's cold right there. And when he finds himself within the chamber of the dead, he learns that he has been deceived. His chariot was just a myth, and death a fancy child, right? Because fear is not real, right? It's all in your mind. But someday all men's lessons will be learned. And from the den of unclean beasts and birds and creeping things, he will rise to walk in light, right? They say Harem Abiff in the Masonic circles. You got to get out the grave, the shallow grave. And Yahshua saw a ladder made of gold in which he climbed. And at the top of the white robe, priest awaited him. Again, he stood before the council bar. Again, no word was said. Again, the Hierophant or the high priest or the Magi reached for his hand to bliss. He placed in Yahshua's hand another scroll. And on this one was written heroism. The Logos had encountered fear and all his phantom hosts, and in the conflict, he achieved victory. You achieve victory, right? Let me check the chat for our it's all in the mind, right? Indigo. It's all in the mind. So that means we need to work on our mind so we can be masterminds. All a mastermind is somebody that's in control of themselves to a degree that nothing outside of them can just rock them. Oh man, I'm just rocked. You should be right, but it's easier said than done. Clearly, because everybody will be on that level. But back to the 144,000, we've come across this information for a reason. This type of light got introduced to everybody in this chat for a reason. So we got to answer to the call. I want to open the floor for any type of thoughts, statements, and comments on this chapter.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared, man. All right, perception is reality.
That fear is the chariot to death, or that line. Woo, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
How deep is that, well, brothers? How deep does that sentence go? Like, say, fear is the chariot of death, because you can, like, say, if it's a type of fear where you know something, excuse my language, fucked up gonna happen in the outcome. Is it still that same fear? Like, say, for instance, I'm unarmed and a man is yelling and shouting at me in a volatile manner with a gun in his hand. There's gonna be some type of fear because I'm like, yo, this dude might pop me. You feel what I'm saying? So in that aspect, are you just supposed to act like that shit can't happen? Like that's what you're supposed to do?
No.
Gotta keep that thing on you, big dog.
I definitely do, family. You already know. I pops mine, bro.
But really, it's about, because even in that situation, for one, you can't change. You can't change it, for one. So once you come to terms with whatever's in front of you, you can't change. Now you're thinking about it more on like, oh, let my they call it a flight or flight. Your adrenaline's gonna kick in. What's gonna happen is you're gonna try your best to die to get out the situation real quick. Like your superhuman abilities kick in when your adrenaline kick in. You can run faster, you can hit harder, you can jump faster. That's just what it is. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna utilize your fear and transmutate it into a safety, flight or flight. What we're saying is don't let fear where you meditating on it every day and you just stopping and I'm uninspired now, man. This is, this ain't gonna work. White man keep shutting us down. What's the point of uniting? This shit, you know what I mean? This that type of that's what we're talking about. The fear. Oh, Black Wall Street got bombed. We built a community. You in fear that we're gonna get bombed again. What's the point? What's the point of all this? Like, you know what I mean? So I guess there's levels to it.
Okay, it's fine.
Can I just want to say when I think that it's talking about fear like that in a sense, I think it's talking about like almost like, because everything is, starts with spiritual. So it's like I see it as like as your spiritual discomfort. It almost remind me like if y'all seen that movie Apocalypto, and before he dies before his father, he tells his son, if I paraphrase it correctly, like fear is a disease. You know what I mean? Like he told him don't bring that into the village or something like that. So I see it as just staying strong. Like you said, in those situations, you may feel fear, but if I'm correct, that's when you have courage. Because what courage is, that is like, okay, I feel this, but I'm still gonna have like Mafi was talking about, my natural reactions, or I have faith that the Father's gonna lead me, he gonna have his way. So my spirit is good anyways. That's kind of like when I see the fear like that, I think it's talking about like spiritual spiritual comfort and discomfort, because that's a major factor on every individual. But
That is true
but
because everybody go through ups and downs. Like, ain't nobody on the chat can say that not one time, even in Morris Science, not one time you don't be like, well, damn, this should have happened this way. Or you kind of get yourself in your mind start twirling, but you got to have enough strength to build your mind back up and get out of that way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? So what y'all telling me is, I thank y'all for that. That I answered my own question, and y'all answered the question perfectly. Like right now, I'm dealing with like a financial situation. I'm in between jobs and things of that nature, and sometimes I get discouraged because I'm not able to do certain things. You know what I'm saying? That I'm supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? And it makes you feel a certain type of way. But I always break through. I always break through. I'm just explaining to y'all something private that I'm going through myself. I always break through. You know what I'm saying? It never sticks. I've always been that type of person. I've always been a strong person. You know what I'm saying? So what y'all telling me is really resonating with me, and I appreciate all of that. Mob Sheik, I appreciate Islam.
Islam.
yes, sir. Stay strong, brother. It's all love.
Islam. Yep. Indigo. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at the chat late, but yeah, Indigo. Acceptance and response, right? And fear keeps the chains on our mind and spirit, right? So yeah. Any other thoughts on this space before we close out in prayer? All right. So we'll close out in prayer. I'll do a little recap on Noble Jew Ali Day. And we just talk about whatever after I close out. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Amen. Islam. Let me stop the recording and adjourn the meeting and see what's up with the Moors, man. How everybody doing?